welcome to UC Today. I'm Susie Harrison, Senior Content Editor, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Herbert from Destiny. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning, Susie. Great to be here. Yes, I'm working with Destiny. Chief Partner Evangelist is my title, which is great. So I get to talk about our products and what we do and really just sort of frame Destiny's approach to the market.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. So can you start by telling us about the options for providers to get into Teams calling and what are some of the barriers that they might face?
Sure. Let's start with some of the barriers first. I think when an operator or a partner looks at getting into Teams calling, they're faced with some new stuff to get used to, I suppose, put it like that. So there's issues around things like skilling their workforce. There's also, what do they do about things like Operator Connect or direct routing? That for them might be new technology as well. What partnerships do they need with service providers for numbering? Are they a numbers and minutes provider themselves? In which case, what's their approach to connecting kind of their network into Teams? Because when you put calls into Teams, you have to go through Microsoft's gateways, through kind of approved methods or at least documented ways of doing things. So there's a sort of technical barrier or a technical challenge anyway, plus also a skills challenge. I think many operators don't have Teams kind of certified guys on the staff, or have not got a sort of track record of that. So I think it's kind of multifaceted. But generally in those two areas, technical and skills are the things that a provider would need to look at generally, I think.
And as big as Microsoft Teams is, why do you think Teams Phone is relatively underutilized?
I think when organizations look at Teams as a phone, generally the larger organizations already have an established phone platform. So that presents a challenge in that Teams phone functionality is quite different to how a traditional phone system works. I mean, Microsoft have gone from a different starting point to get where they are. Sometimes they expect that customers would adjust the kind of usage to match what Teams can do. Whereas several customers, we find larger customers have established kind of business processes around the capability of the phone platform. So there is some kind of a divergence of that. Now, there's some really clever tooling around for the partners to connect effectively an established phone system into Teams so that customers aren't faced with that compromise. So I think we can help them achieve that transition. And again, they do need to think about what the conversation is with the customer. I think many customers out there are thinking about Teams phone system or Teams generally. They're using it across their workforce. They're seeing real benefits from that, and they're saying, how can I further get benefits from using Teams phone to simplify my organization, to take devices off the desk and out of IT management as well. So it's an attractive option, but then they have to think about what's my compromise. Now, if we can go to the customer without a compromise, then they can get the best of both worlds effectively. They get to keep all that rich functionality they've established in their existing phone platform, which is kind of running their business for several. And also to give them that Teams end user experience which they look for, and that simplification of the user as well, the user experience of not having to make a call on one thing and make a Teams call. If they're talking to a Teams friend, they use Teams, and if they're talking to a customer, they use a different app. No, that's non-ideal really. I think ideally you'd have them all in the same place, which we can achieve by either using Teams phone system in its native way or connecting Teams to a customer's existing phone system.
Okay. And what problems does a customer need to resolve to be able to get into the Teams calling space?
Well, I think there's a few. They have to think about what's their approach. Are they looking to connect their existing phone platform? So there's some work to do. What phone platform they're using? How are we going to access it? How are we going to bridge those calls into Teams? If they're already using one of the cloud UCaaS platforms, that's relatively easy. If they're using an on-premise one, there's some more complexity, but still quite achievable. Or is the customer looking to migrate to Teams in a native phone system way and use the capabilities of Teams just out of the box? In which case, then, how are they going to get their calls into Teams? Are they going to use direct routing? Are they going to use Operator Connect? Now, at Destiny, we can work across all these different dimensions, whether it's connecting to a legacy PBX, whether it's Operator Connect, whether it's direct routing. We cover that whole gambit. So generally, whatever a partner or an operator is faced faced within a customer conversation, we've got a solution to. So there's never a kind of no answer to this. It's just a case of what you're trying to achieve, how is it best achieved, and which tools are we going to use to deliver that. So, the good news here is there's a big market out there with Teams. It's growing. It did 30% increase year on year last year for cloud UCaaS. I mean, it's the biggest growing cloud phone system out there. So for the channel, it represents a great opportunity. Now, we can give them the tooling there to exploit that opportunity as well.
And just picking up on that, what opportunities do you think Teams presents to partners?
I think it expands their customer reach. I say most, a lot of business customers out there now using Teams on their day-to-day business. So if you're a partner and you're looking to kind of extend your business, you could look to get some skills around Teams, get a really good understanding, and then start talking to customers with a Teams first conversation, saying, okay, you're using Teams, we understand that. Have you thought about bringing your voice into Teams? We've got expertise and skills to do that, and you may find the customer's already thinking about it, so you can capture kind of live opportunities. And once you've done this once, you can then cookie cut that across new customers. So it's a really good way of expanding your business into a market of 350 million users. It's a big market. It's got growth. It's got traction. There's a real pull from it. So I think we are seeing that as an increasing opportunity for the channel and for operators as well.
And how do you think providers are seeing Teams as a whole? And do you think they see it as more of a threat, or are people starting to see the value that it can bring?
Well, it depends, doesn't it, what they're doing today. Now, if you're a provider that's providing, a fairly rich cloud UCaaS platform as part of your offer, then you may see Teams as a threat. You've also got a highly differentiated offer, because as I say, Teams can appear to be somewhat rudimentary for some users. And if your cloud UCaaS is quite rich in functionality, then it's kind of less of a threat. And I think as you get into the kind of smaller micro businesses, they tend not to use Teams as their phone platform. They still rely on just a phone on a desk or something relatively easy to understand. So I think it depends where you're operating. In the enterprise and the kind of mid-market space, I think you'll see there is pressure to Teams enable your solution. So because these guys want to give their end users a single Teams experience. So that's the opportunity then to bring your existing UCaaS with all of its capability into the Teams world, and then provide the customers quite a rich experience, but with Teams. So for you, it's if you're doing that, it's a big opportunity. I think there is kind of an underlying trend of customers who are starting to just rationalize and say, if I don't want two phone platforms, I may just want to use Teams. At the moment, that's not an easy transition if they're using rich functionality, but I think going forward, we might see that kind of the feature gap start to reduce, in which case it is something to bear in mind as to how does your functionality compare with Teams? Do customers want to compromise? How can you kind of increase the value you provide to customers? How do you go into sort of specialist services around things like compliance and risk management, which all customers are quite concerned about nowadays? So there's opportunity to pile on new value, as well as capitalize on the Teams growth story as well, I think.
So what are those options outside of Teams that you think providers can benefit from?
Yeah, well, Teams is not the only fruit, is it? Let's face it, you've got likes of Webex out there and Zoom and so on. And I think those guys also are seeing growth in their their customer bases. I think there is a kind of a general reduction in on-premise PBX. It's like I did with email. Everyone used to have an email server under the desk. We don't do that anymore. It's just in the cloud. So we're seeing that voices go in the same way, that people are taking out their on-premise phone systems and moving to the cloud. So there's a general growth in cloud PBX, which includes all the big names plus Microsoft and Webex. And we also can provide for Webex the same sort of functionality we can do with Teams. So bringing your phone numbers into Webex for a customer. And so if they want to stay with the same operator, stay with all the numbering, we can then connect you as an operator into the back of Webex, and then you can deliver that as the sort of front end solution. So Microsoft is big. There's also the other big players as well. Microsoft, in the end, I'm not sure. I don't think there won't be one dominant partner. I think there'll probably be about 3 or 4 big ones, and also a lot of other ones providing more specialist services, I think.
Right, well, we look forward to tracking this on UC Today. Thank you, Mark, so much for joining us today. And if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates from UC Today. Thank you.